Hello again, everybody. Mr. Forshee. Remember that the program that I'm using is only letting me record at 15-minute intervals. I left my iPad at home, or left it at school. I don't have it at home, so I wasn't able to tape it all at once. But that's okay. You'll have different segments here and kind of be able to take a break in between. This is where I left off last time, and that MPF again is just kind of, I'm not going to test on this, but that maturation promoting factor is the part that we're seeing right here in terms of this structure. That's kind of the key in terms of understanding that we have to build that in order to get into the mitotic index. And this is part of where that cell cycle can be controlled, because if we don't build that particular cyclin or those enzymes can build these structures, then we don't move into that particular phase. So let's take a look here, like in terms of cyclins, how they turn on and off the cycle. So here's a good example, like over here where it says no cyclin. Look what happens. The cyclin dependent kinase here, and that's this part right here, which is inactive because it hasn't had a cyclin bind onto it again. So another protein binding onto this, and then what it can do then, it can then turn on and kind of go into each one of these target areas, and then again the S phase factors are off. But again, this is a stop right here because it's inactive. That's the key with this. It's not working. Now, over on the other side, though, if you notice that that's G1S cyclin that we talked about is bound to my cyclin-dependent kinase. And what this does, it allows for phosphorylation. So that was an activity we had done, a couple of weeks ago. But you could see we have three phosphates that have joined on to our target areas. And what this does then, it promotes that of the S phase begins. So again, there's a signal that comes in, and we can activate from those cyclins to cyclins by just binding these two structures together. So that cyclin-dependent kinase is dependent on that different type of cyclin binding to it and then turning on those target areas. And again, here we have like what that phosphate group looks like. Now, again, this is tough. I mean, we are just learning this, but down the road, you're going to learn more and more about these cycles. And like I said, if you're taking AP Bio, Mrs. Brewer will talk about it more, or if you're heading off to college courses, they kind of start here. That's kind of why we cover this. Now, in terms of understanding this is how we get promotion factors in terms of how this starts. Now, this is going to be key. This is something I could ask you on a quiz because we've talked about this, but we have a growth factor attaches to a receptor here. That receptor for the cell, and again, this is a type of kinase, it's called a tyrosine kinase. This is probably one of the more popular ones that most professors or teachers will talk about. But what happens is it triggers an event to signal the cell to divide inside the nucleus. Now, if you notice here, if you can see the amount of receptors that we have, when we kind of have too many receptors, what happens is we have too much cell signaling that goes on. And this is kind of an example like a HER2 breast cancer, where a typical cell will maybe have, I'm just making these numbers up, 1,000, but somebody with that particular type of cancer may have 10,000. But what they have is an overabundant of the growth factor receptor. So when it picks up that, again, that factor, that ligand, it's just going to trigger the receptor. It's going to trigger the events here. So as the cell divides into two, you can see we have two cells. Now, that's kind of the questions I ask over here, like how does a researcher control this? Well, we're going to look at this in class, but there are drugs on the market like Herceptin that can actually kind of bind to these particular areas and act as like a competitive inhibitor, which doesn't allow like other factors to join on to it. So you can actually try to silence some of the kind of overstimulus of that particular cell division. Here's another thing that can happen too, though. So how do you go from a proto-oncogene to an oncogene? Well, in a normal cell division here, here's another type of control factor. This is the RAS, it's RAS, and you can see right here. So it's just like the tyrosine, but we have a growth factor that binds onto, again, a receptor site, so the growth factor receptor, and then that triggers the RAS to turn on, so the GTP and the RAF tell the cell to go into division. Now, this is normal, guys. This is how we get, I'm going to put an N here to kind of say normal, but that's going to be normally how we want to take and do this. Now, when we want to shut this off, that's the key, is we just don't have the growth factor. So no growth factor. Look at the receptor sites are not excited, so they're off. And that RAS to GDP, see how that doesn't excite to the RAF? This is in the off position. So when our cells go on and they go off, these are kind of the ways to do this. Now, an oncogene is one that is running out of control. So notice here we have no growth factor, but watch what happens though. The RAS and this are left on, and that's the key with this. So when I go on here, I'm going to type on, and that's not what we want to see, is that on position then, because we want that to be off. Oops, I'm kind of move this around here. But that's saying that it's on and it's going to be left on. And that's kind of the key in terms of understanding how that works. Now, let me just type this in on like this. For some reason, the whole box here, I'll do it like this, on. Delete that one out. But that's where that's going to be on now, and then that's what's going to give us our trouble. So cell division and proliferation, and this is uncontrollable growth we have right here. So that's the key. This is now uncontrollable, and we're going to start to accumulate cells in that particular area. And that's not what we want to have. Now, how do you get the RAS not to work properly? So this is like our last example right here. Here's that RAS here again. Now, RAS can have two primary mutations. Again, we could see here that it can be amino acid number 12, or it can be amino acid number 61. Now, usually what happens is kind of right down here is you have an active and inactive form, and we have no tumor formation. And this is the key part right here. So this right here is going to be the key area that we're looking for. So this is key right there. So what we're saying is that, again, the area is going to allow for the cell to turn on and the cell to turn off. Now, over here, though, when we have these two particular mutations, this is a proto-onco, the one in the middle, but the one on the sides are now oncogenes, and that's kind of what we're seeing here. And that's an onco, and this is onco. So kind of like what I showed before back here is showing how the mutations can then show up. So what we have, if you notice, the protein is misaligned here. Both of these proteins are kind of broken. So the one in the middle, notice how it's a particular shape. The ones on the outside don't have a particular shape, and that's why they're not functioning properly. So a patient with either the mutation 12 of the amino acid 12 or 61 would then show excessive growth. And again, that could be something that we would have to kind of maybe try to control through some type of drug or some type of treatment. Could be radiation too. But what we would hope is that by destroying that particular mutation or faulty cell, the cell will then try to do an autocorrect and maybe correct that particular mutation. So here's kind of the cell cycle we've been talking about, and these are just kind of giving us examples about how we control the cell cycle. So like we talked about destroying those cyclins, that's what we can do. If we don't allow these cyclins to kind of accumulate in the cell, it won't push on. Now, again, depending what type of cell we're looking at, you can have like a loss of function. And again, a lot of times it's a reduced or abolished protein function. And a gain of function means that, again, you're gaining that function. Now, we kind of did an activity in classic deals with this. But one of the checkpoints is this G1S, and that before we synthesize the DNA. Now, it's kind of good to do this so we don't take and waste unnecessary energy by, replicating the DNA and then realizing that something's wrong with, let's say, the mitochondria, or something's wrong with the spindle fibers. Now, if you look at G2, G2 is an important one too because it's going to check to make sure DNA is duplicated properly, and then what it will do is then, if everything's good, it's going to pass it on to the M phase, where we talked about that MPF. So, that proliferation, again, factor, the maturation one. And then we have the spindle checkpoint too. So all of these are good. And if it's not working properly, then we can take and see, again, how to kind of stop it. Now, how can we stop a checkpoint is a couple of areas here. So one of them we could do is do a tumor suppressor gene. Well, it suppresses the cell cycle. And that's going to act on the G1 or S or G2 or M control points. And it pulls it out of division. It tries to fix it. And if it can't fix it, it sends it to apoptosis. Now, again, once we have it fixed, then we can go back into the cell cycle. And that's where we come up with this proto-oncogene. So that's going to promote the cell division. So in Jane and her brother, that beta-catenin was one that we had talked about, was a proto-oncogene, and it's kind of pushing, again, that cell to go into division, and the APC that's kind of control it. And then oncogene is one that, again, it mutate form of the proto-oncogene, induce or continue uncontrolled cell growth. So all of these guys are kind of things that we need to kind of be aware of as we go forward. But this is what kind of holds those checkpoints to not only stop it, but to also have it go forward. Now, what can cause some damage to our cells? Like this is the example right here that we can see in terms of understanding those divisions. So like here's an example of the P53. So a virus, toxin, or radiation, either any of those environmental triggers, it's going to try to correct it and then try to make it so it's good. But now if that's broken, and the DNA repair genes aren't working that have been signaled by P53, or P53 doesn't signal those enzymes, these are the types of cancers that can show up. Now, we call these somatic mutation because they're body cells. So body cells are like, for example, skin, pancreas, colon, breast tissue, retina cells in the eye. Those are all examples of those particular forms of cancer. So here again is something that you guys can add in. This is really a good example of how that P53 gene works. So if you notice here that normal P53, we have a mutation here in the DNA right here. This is damaged DNA. The P53 gene is signaled, and then what it does, it signals a DNA repair gene to make repairs. Now, if it makes repairs, then the P53 allows the cells to divide and move on from there. But now notice what happened. This particular line, if it can't repair it, then it triggers the destruction by apoptosis. So again, that P53 is so important to us. Now, what if you have your P53 is not working? And we could see here in this particular example, it's broken. Well, we have a mutation and we develop cancer cells. So again, in like people that smoke, we find that 70% of their tumors, the P53 gene is knocked out. So something in that cigarette smoke, some type of carcinogen, it targets that P53, and that's what can cause that particular cancer to show up. So how does that P53 work? This is kind of a good example here. If you notice that we have a checkpoint in damaged DNA, that P53 acts as kind of an inhibitor to that CDK, and it doesn't allow for that to take place. Now, again, that's if there's damage, but if it's okay, it allows for the CDK cycling complex inactivation, and it's not going to allow and kind of pauses in G1. So P53 kind of plays that important role in terms of how that's going to work. But it's that checkpoint. So CDK inhibitors, it makes the inhibitor, it shows right here. And I guess maybe let me say that a little bit differently. But that P53 is making the inhibitor that actually binds onto this. And this right here by itself would allow for, again, that cell to go into cycle, but the inhibitor is taking and stopping it. Now, again, I'm coming to the end of my second phase here of the notes. So I will upload these notes, and then it'll take me one more set here to kind of upload. But again, this is kind of a test question I could ask you. So just make sure you're aware of, again, how that p53 works, and it's all about using